So when you look back at the Beta story, it's a really fascinating one, to me anyway. You look at it's an Italian family-owned company. It's been around for the best part of 120 years. Obviously a background in trials and enduro in particular. But really sort of started hitting the ground running and putting themselves in the spotlight, I guess, around 2017. When Brad Freeman and Steve Holcomb started winning not just class but world championships outright. The World Enduro Championship was a really big thing. So, I think all of that galvanised the company to, really charge on their R&D. And when they really stunned the motorcycle world in 2020 when they came out with 8 new models, 4 two-strokes, 4 four-strokes, and all of them with sweeping changes to engine, to suspension, to bodywork, like massive changes, changing the cases. It was not just an upgrade. So, there's 8 models. You've got another 8 models with the RR Racing, which is the up-spec version of those, the bike for the red, white and blue. And then in the meantime, not only have they been upgrading those models, but they brought out a RX300 motocrosser, and they've got a Xtrainer, which is a mellow or a detuned 300. So the really interesting thing for us is, like, when you look at that range, it's a freaking smorgasbord, but there's 4 of the bikes are 300cc two-stroke. So what we thought would be really interesting, given that choice, given the diversity in Beta's offering, just in that 300cc two-stroke alone, we'll get 4 of them together, come out, do some testing, and give a bit of feedback about the thing. So let me introduce you to the 4 bikes that we're talking about. So the RR Enduro, their standard model. These are all 2022 models. Big changes across the range for 2022. Came out with the diaphragm spring clutch, a whole lot of other little bits and pieces. But the really big news and was that the short stroke motor that this 300cc two-stroke came. So instead of like all other manufacturers, when they move from a 250 to a 300 two-stroke, they literally go from a sort of 66mm bore to a 72. That's it. Bigger bore. You move from a 250 to a 300. What Beta did with this 300, the RR300, was a over square engine. So a 73mm slug, actually a shorter stroke than its 250. So like an over square, and very interesting. Main idea of that was actually to help that agility, stop the thing running on, feeling like a 500cc two-stroke in the bush. So the standard model, even though it comes with a whole lot of trick componentry on it, is $13,700. That's the price tag. So let's move over here to its up-specced RR Racing brother. Clearly differences in the look of the thing, red, white and blue. The most obvious thing is the Kayaba closed cartridge fork. There's a host of other components, but for the first time ever, I think what they've done between the 300, the RR and the RR Racing is actually make the engine a lot more aggressive. So not only is the suspension on this bike sort of tuned to give that sort of versatility for that faster guy, but the engine much more snappy and aggressive this year. So differential between the two, with the differences in suspension, componentry, engine, $2,000. So you're paying $15,700 for this one. Based on the RR Racing and looking very much like it, but you might notice it's got a 19-inch rear, this RX300. So really interesting model. I think it was a bit of a novelty when it came out in America in 2021. It was a limited edition thing, as part of their sort of, I guess, Beta's sort of prototype program. They've got a 450 in the World Championship at the moment. But, look at this thing. It's it comes with all the fruit, the Kayaba suspension on the front, still the ZF Sax shock. 9.5 litre tank. As I said, 19-inch rear, electric start, like ballsy thing. Anyway, the guys from Beta Australia managed to get a couple of these models out here in Australia. A lot of fun to ride. And when you think about it, KTM's just released their 300 SX. So almost in a way, it's sort of like they've vindicated this model. Is like suddenly there's a class, right? So interesting that Betas were the sort of pioneers of that. So all those bikes in the same sort of genre, very similar componentry. Here's something very different. Beta's 300 Cross Trainer, XT Cross Trainer 300, also available in a 250. Lightweight, 99 kilos, super agile, perimeter frame, 43mm fork, Ollie shock, so much sort of softer, gentler, more sort of trials oriented bike, for somebody who may not want a hardcore enduro bike or not need it. Equipped for extreme riding, lower seat height, but also, we've had one of these as a project bike, and Jeff Ballard got on the thing recently and won the over 60s class in a 4-day. Admittedly snotty conditions where this thing absolutely shines. Price to sell, $11,500, and as I said, biggest seller and beat his range now for a couple of years, which has got to beg the question, right? You look at every other manufacturer who produces a 300, that's their biggest selling enduro model. Why don't they do a detuned version? I don't know, something tells me there's maybe a little bit of an opportunity lost here. So, look, all the bikes are dead standard. What you see in terms of the protection, the handguards, the setup, the jetting, you name it, is standard. The only thing that we did is put a set of Pirelli Scorpion mid-softs on the things, just to sort of, you know, to keep the playing field level. So, what you may see behind me and on this beautiful winter's day, we're up here in the mid-north coast, up inland of Coffs Harbour. We got together from the guys from Beta Australia, and also Jake and Blaze from Mid-Coast Moto. Come out to Blaze's property. The boys have cut in an amazing cross-country track. So, you know, we've had an opportunity to put these things, not so much back to back, but ride them and sample them and see what sort of their personality on everything from single track, hill climbs, up and down, grass track, and then we've hit some pretty gnarly jumps across the road as well. So great to have these guys' input. It's a motley crew of blokes, great blokes. Really appreciate them getting involved. So let's have a bit of a chat to them and see what they thought of the bikes.
There's a lot of guys that buy the racing because it is the up-spec model. You know, it has all the fancy bits on it, which is awesome. But in reality, the standard model is better suited to most guys. You know, most riders. Although the racing does have, you know, if you push it, it works really, really well. But the standard RR is more versatile. It's better in more situations for more people, for sure. The Xtrainer definitely is very versatile. We do sell, I think it's pretty close between the standard RR and the Xtrainer, but I think the Xtrainer does take the best-selling title, I suppose. Get a variety of people, from people who are new to it, women riders, junior, you know, a lot of 12 to 15, a lot of that in that range, but then also just, you know, hardcore enduro guys who want to do some snotty single track. That thing's just so manageable. It's so easy to ride, and it's, yeah, like I said, it is versatile, as you probably see later on. Yeah, the RX, that's a bunch of fun. It's angry, that thing. It barks. Awesome grass track bike, perfect on the jumps. But it can, if you got it in the right hands, it works well in enduro setting too, as long as you got someone who's either fast enough or heavy enough to make the suspension work. It's quite stable, and if you can handle the power, it's good fun. Yeah, jumping the Xtrainer was, yeah, you can definitely do it. Like, don't underestimate that thing, for sure. Yeah, there's less margin for error than obviously the RX and even the RR Racing, but yeah, if you're confident with it, it'll certainly handle it, as long as you're just a little bit careful. You know, it's good fun.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to ride all 4 bikes today. To get to back them was a pretty cool experience. Like, there's not many opportunities to do that, so it was definitely awesome today to get the opportunity to do that. My favourite bike was definitely the RX. Just for me, out of the box, a little bit firmer suspension, just a better hold up through the bumps, a little stronger power, especially through the middle. The bike that surprised me most, which is obviously a surprise, was the Xtrainer. In the bush, in the tighter stuff, just being so skinny and light and nimble, and you just pick your way through over the roots and rocks and logs, and still have the torque and the power to get up some of those hills. Like, it was pretty awesome to try. Like, other than today, I probably wouldn't have got a chance to ride one, so to get to try it out and see what they're all about, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. So being a little heavier of a set guy, around like 110, give or take on a good day, I found most of the suspension in the stack suspension in the standard RR model was a little soft for me, especially coming down some of the hills. The front end would dive a little, but obviously that's a pretty easy fix later on down the track, like with some stiffer springs and stuff. But yeah, just out of the box for me, it was just a little bit soft, being a little bigger. So the rear shock in the standard RR for me was a little too soft. I felt it had a squirming feeling under load going up some of the hills. So the RX was obviously going to be pretty good on the motocross track and on some of those bigger jumps. Had awesome fun on that and felt natural straight away. Like, it came really easy. There was no second guessing. Like, I had the confidence on it straight away. It did surprise me in the bush. although having the stronger power, it still felt nimble in the bush. Like maybe not as nimble as the Xtrainer, but still, you can still pick your way through and come out awesome. Yeah, the boys have been jamming me up so much that I think we're going to look at riding a Transmoto 8-hour in a team and give me a lend of another one, so that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, we'll see how we go. We'll have to keep talking to the boys and G that up. So might see it cost.
So yeah, well, I do own the two 300s, as you know, the RX300, the motocross bike, because I still enjoy riding the motocross tracks and things. It's different coming from a 4-stroke, and also I've got the 300 race, or RR race, which is enjoyable in the bush. Difference in the two, to me, is that the motocross model is a little bit more torquey, but it's also a different ride feel in, I think, the way the power's delivered. A little bit more bottom end and torque, but it's also the way it's delivered's a little bit faster and sharper. Come onto the RR Racing, and I feel that the way that the bike rides is better for bush, because it is an enduro, but the way that the power's delivered is completely different. The new 22 model to my 21 model was a lot different. I have noticed it. I've only just recently stepped up to the 22. And I do like the way that the 22 delivers a high rev, but it is a little bit short in the torque range down below. Do enjoy them both. I obviously am partners in the local bike shop of Beta, and that's the reason why I'm actually currently on them. But yeah, enjoy riding them both. So yeah, the Xtrainer, after riding that today, the Beta 300 Xtrainer, it was, now I can comment on how that bike rides, because people have asked me previously and I haven't been able to answer what's going on out there with them. Open country sort of grass track stuff, and then into the single lane. It is definitely a bike that is capable, but it has a class of rider's ability in mind, I believe. Definitely a good bike, but if you're going to push, I would say you'd be changing a few things to personal preference. But yeah, it was surprising and very torquey for what it was, trialsy, if you will. Yeah.
Definitely the standout for me today. I mean, it was definitely good to ride all four. I've never ridden all four before, and I've owned a RR350, the 4-stroke, so it was definitely cool to try the 2-strokes today. But I definitely feel like the standout for me was the RR Racing model. It's very close between just the standard RR, but I feel like coming from a road racing background, I'm very hard on the front end, and I feel like the KYB forks definitely held up a little bit. I'm definitely a lot harder on the front brake compared to a lot of other riders. So yeah, I feel like the standout for me was definitely the RR Racing model for sure. The biggest surprise for me today, honestly, was the Xtrainer. I've never ever considered owning one. I've never considered even looking at them, to be honest. But honestly, it was awesome in every condition that the track had today. Like through the tight stuff, definitely. And I feel like coming from a bit more of a trial sort of style frame and the lower seat, it just made it that way more agile through the tighter stuff, but still had the 300 obviously power whenever you wanted it. So that was definitely a surprise to me. I definitely never thought I'd own one, and I'd actually considered it after today for sure. Yeah, it was definitely a standout for today. The RX300 motocross bike was definitely a weapon. I do like my motocross, so if I was to do a motocross and enduro, I'd love to have one in the garage for sure. But for me personally, the enduro, the RR Racing model for an all-rounder for me. Just for longer rides, I do enjoy my longer rides, and the Transmoto, the 8 hours and things like that. So I feel like the RX would be a bit more of a weapon for me to hang on to all day long, but I loved it. It's the craziest bike I've ever rode, that's for sure.
To have so many 300s in what is arguably the biggest segment in off-road motorcycling, so that's pretty cool in itself. Obviously we've got something for everyone. And particularly with the 22 model, having the new bore and stroke on the enduro bike was pretty revolutionary. And definitely I can notice the difference. I feel like I can see why they've done that. Definitely makes the bike more manoeuvrable. It definitely makes the bike easier to ride, which is Beta's whole philosophy. And today I got to ride the RX300, which doesn't have the new engine, still got the old bore and stroke, and
it's quite the animal, and that was good fun as well. I guess the most frustrating thing for me is, day in, day out, as I see customers, buying the wrong 300 for the wrong purpose. And that's one of the biggest frustrations I have, I guess. And it's my job to try and educate our network and our customers, to do a bit more homework. I see far too many customers, I guess, buying a 300 Racing for hard enduro, and it's definitely not what that bike was designed for. And they'd probably be better off in most cases on the RR300, which has probably got the broadest appeal. The Xtrainer is just amazing. It does absolutely everything. And I was amazed myself this afternoon to watch Jake hitting that rather large jump on it. So it's incredible that it probably is the best hard enduro bike, the best learner bike, particularly for those a bit shorter in stature or strength, and some, there's a lot of new women. And the price is amazing as well, so it's hard to go past.
So that's some really interesting feedback from a bunch of guys, with varying riding ability, weight, and preference in terms of what they want from their bike. So, but what can we take out of this? Testing 4 bikes that are so different. So, I guess the first really obvious thing is if you're in the market for a 300cc two-stroke cutting-edge machine, then Beta's got you covered. I think that's pretty sort of simple to say to start with. Also, just the variety of what you get. Like you take the same base 300cc two-stroke motor, and whether it's through sort of a jetting or pipe or mapping or power valve, or a combination of those things, you can transform the character of a bike, and that was a really interesting thing for me that came out of that experience. And when I talk about versatility, on the one hand, you've got this fire-breathing motocross bike that is pretty at home in the bush, and then on the other hand, you've got a trials bike or a soft enduro bike that actually, you saw doing some jumping over doubles. So, Beta really has done an amazing job with all these machines. For me, the standard, the RR model, was the one. It had the most magical engine. It was on the pipe the whole time. The RR Racing was a bit too aggressive for me. I didn't have the strength to hang on to that, in some of the tight stuff. The all-round suspension package, I think, on that RR model was bloody good, Sure, it fell short of the Kayaba on the downhills where the fork wouldn't sit up, but you have the option of a tool-free, to dial up the preload on that, which I found, a really cool feature. And just a great all-round reliable thing with, some really top-end componentry on the thing. So, I think really interesting test. I think all of us found it really intriguing. I guess what you got to say is take out of it is that if you're in the market for one of these 300cc two-strokes, and we all know in Australia we're after power, and a lot of people are biggest selling engine capacity for a lot of manufacturers, then go have a chat to your local Beta dealer and see if you can get your bum on all 4 of them.